This week, I found cause to worry about young men. This headline from The Hill, it caught my eye.
According to the latest National Healthcare and Quality Disparities Report, nearly 20% of children between ages 3 to 17 have a mental, emotional, developmental, or behavioral disorder.
The ONS data that came out a couple of weeks ago that said for the first time ever since records began, 50.1% of women are childless by 30. So there are more women without children at 30 than there are women with children.
And in 2018, nearly half the U.S. population reported feeling lonely regularly.
Loneliness is a major threat to Americans' well-being,
leading some experts to say that we're actually in the middle of a loneliness epidemic.
This video series is made to give you information to form healthy relationships and lifestyles. You, the viewer, give your thoughts on each question down below in the comments and help us create a community of men and women uplifting each other. Many people find that when they are successful in finding a relationship, they are met with consistent arguments, lack of connection, and instability. We culturally have associated that experience with the word toxic. Toxic relationships can have a worse effect on your life than social isolation. These types of relationships have been advertised to us by social media with the support of celebrities and athletes. For the average person who does not want to be involved in these types of relationships, what are some of the signs of a toxic relationship, and what should we do to avoid them altogether?
Again, our culture is so immersed with kind of glorifying and romanticizing toxic relationships. Like I said, some of the things that are exacerbated on social media. So we talk about all these toxic traits, or what's your toxic trait? I know that was a key word back in the day, but you'd be like, girl, me too, or boy, you know what I'm saying, I feel you, mom, like stuff like that. The thing of it is that I think it's more reaffirming than anything, but also we got to understand that we kind of recreating the wheel of something that we don't know in the moment, maybe because we were young, that it's a generation, it could be a generational curse. And going back to the disconnect between men and women is if we're sitting here talking about some of the things that are toxic and we're talking about, man, you should do that, or you know, reaffirming some of the behaviors that we reaffirm as a culture, it's not going to move us forward. It's going to keep us back. And I think we all kind of like hiding in jokes and talking about it's just joke, it's just social media. But some people internalize that stuff. Some people really do believe some of the things that they're posting. So it's not just a post for a lot of people. It's not just jokes. And we can't just joke about certain things. I know some things may be funny. I'm a ha he he guy on Twitter all the time, but we have to understand what the message that we're putting out here and the ability and the effect that it has. So toxic relationships is a really, really important topic for us culturally. And I'm gonna break it down here. So one of the main elements of toxic relationship is controlling behavior. And I'm only going to speak from a man's perspective, but this can happen on both spectrums, any sex, any gender. This doesn't just apply to one person, but from a man perspective, I think, theoretically, and some of the things that going back to, historically, our love or our affection or the way we were taught to love was to control our partner or just have this manly aspect of dictating and being the leader and being the lead dog, which is all cool and all to a certain extent. I think there has to be a shift. And if you're seeing people starting to control your behavior and, dictating where you can go and what you cannot do and what you cannot say and stuff like that, that is a huge major red flag of you maybe being in a toxic relationship. That inability to allow you to act as oneself, or you're only controlled, or you only can do what a said partner is saying that you can do, is a really, really big indicator of toxicity in that. And that is something that I would always tell people to be cognizant of when they, enter into some type of partnership or some type of relationship with one another. So that controlling behavior is one of those signs. The second sign I would talk about in terms of a toxic relationship, or maybe being in one, or recognizing one, is disregarding and invalidating your partner's feelings and thoughts. We do this too often. We do this too often because we kind of funnel our own experiences through them. Worst thing that happened to them might not be the worst thing that happened to us. So they just overreact and they're blowing things out of proportion. And something that maybe bother them a lot, it doesn't bother us as much, or we feel as though it wouldn't bother us. So we don't really give that too much attention. Disregarding somebody's feeling that's a terrible feeling. And if you've been on the other end of that, you know how that feels, because that feels so heavy and important to you and to somebody that you love or somebody that you are pursuing. For them to sit there and say, I don't really take you into consideration when it comes to those things in terms of your feelings or your thoughts about this, it's a really, really major red flag in terms of this person might not be thinking in my best interest, even though they're not able to funnel how they feel that their experience, or maybe not understand fully where you're coming from, to not consider that at all and to invalidate how you feeling, or to tell you that what you're feeling is not true or shouldn't be said, is a huge thing that we should take into consideration. It's something I would say you should avoid altogether. And then another hot word I know is on social media is gaslighting. It has taken on a meaning of its own. I know some of the hot topics that we just kind of throw out there, but gaslighting is a huge thing. And to make somebody feel crazy for thinking a certain type of way or to feeling a certain type of way, that gaslighting behavior it's so detrimental, because it makes you reflect back on yourself and think like, man, am I crazy? Or you start to question oneself, right? So not only is the connection off, but it's also like detrimental to your own self-esteem, and you start to question your own beliefs and your own confidence and all of that stuff. So that's another thing. And then disrespect and dishonesty. That, I mean, if it's rooted in disrespect and dishonesty, and we're lying to one another, or I'm disrespecting you, I'm calling you out your name, I'm doing said things that I wouldn't approve of you to do, then that is a huge thing you have to take in consideration in terms of a healthy relationship or a healthy partnership or a healthy pursuit of anything. The partner, to lie to them, because this is a vulnerable space for me to, share this life, or to share any type of time or space or any type of valuable thing that in the one life that I do get, and you disrespected or you lied to me in a manner that detrimental to me, like that's very harmful. I can understand why a lot of people at the first sign of that, like, I don't want to deal with that at all. So I think that's another identifier of, one of those signs of a toxic relationship that might be coming on, is the pattern of disrespect and dishonesty that might be coming from a partner. And then lack of support from the partner. Certain partners are kind of self-consumed or overly critical. If that partner is not supporting you in your joint venture or your own individual, venture, or your own goals or your own aspirations, and they're just so consumed and overly critical about everything that you do, that's a big no-no for me. And that was something that I don't want to experience, or that's something that I would tell people, like, that's something you maybe want to shy away from, is because there's two individuals in this, right? So we should be watering each other's plants. Like, I should water you, you should water me. Just because this isn't my, what's important to you is not important to me, doesn't mean that I should lack consideration in the sense of me not saying, hey, this is something that you care about, and I want to make sure that you feel loved in doing this and you feel supported in doing this. And I see that all the time. Just because, whether somebody views something just corny or stupid, or doesn't bring in a lot of money, and doesn't, have any type of merit to another individual, that could be very demoralizing, because we're not really elevating them to be their true, authentic self. That leads me into my next point, and my last point is the walking on eggshells. This is an important one, because this is to the point where you are overthinking it. You're having to sit there and say, I can't say certain things. I can't do anything. I'm having to be in my own head all the time, because I do not want to upset. I do not want to trigger. I do not want to receive any backlash or confrontation from my partner. And if you feel the need to have to always walk on eggshells, or always feel like, dang, I don't know if I can say this. Dang, I don't know if I can do this with every little decision that you make, that is a huge, major red flag for a toxic relationship that's coming on. And you're not able to be your true, authentic self, which, again, going back to my latter point, is a really, really important part of a healthy relationship, is two people that's coming together in union and being their true, authentic self. So if you having to walk on eggshells, or not be yourself, or having to tone down to make that partner feel okay, or to avoid conversation, that's not a way of living. That's a way of surviving. And I don't think anybody should be surviving in a relationship type of manner. So those are some of the things I would say in terms of a toxic relationship, are some of the signs and symptoms that you could sit there and say, all right, these things are happening, and these are the things that I don't want to happen. And if these things are coming on, I can now make the best decision for myself moving forward on what I want to do and what I don't want to do, and who I want to have in my life. And these are just a few of them.